Hello, 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 hello. Yes, yes. Are we live? We're on. Oh, but I don't hear Honkai. Need some of that music. I'm already logged in.
Nice.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first Wednesday night stream. Yeah, I changed up my layout, so I was trying to check all my text messages for the chat last night. So that's why you see all that spammy test message. So yeah, tonight we're gonna be talking about Pathfinder Second Edition. My first impressions of the game so far. But as I have said, I believe on the Sunday stream, we're going to be doing also a little bit of gaming. So I'm going to open it up with some Honkai Star Rail because a new character just came out, and I'm highly addicted to this game. And I've been saving up tickets to do a little gambling and see if we can unlock this character. What's going on? This is Honkai Star Rail. It is it's by the people that are behind Genshin Impact, but this is their sci-fi, cyberpunky waifu husbando gacha game that I actually enjoy because it has a turn-based system that's very reminiscent of JRPGs. So it hits my gaming niche right now. Scratches the itch. So without further ado, yes, a man of culture. All right, without further ado, I think we're ready for some pools. I've been saving these up for forever. I'm over here low on resources, needing to get mats and stuff, but I can't. Just gotta pull. So let's start off with Uno. Let's see what we get. Okay, we got a purple. Ain't mad. Okay, that's not bad. That is not bad at all. Find out what that weapon does in a second. It might be for March. Okay, let's see what this one does. This is my 4-star. Preservation, yeah, this is March's weapon. Increases the wearer's defense by 16% after ending the battle. Increases damage resistance of all allies by 8%. Ooh. Or Fire MC, interesting. It might be something I probably need to work on for Japard. Because I don't really have a good weapon for him. So, but my Fire MC has the best best light cone for him, his best weapon. All right, let's go. Number 2. We're trying to pull Jingyuan because I need a good DPS character. Okay, we got another purple. Okay. Sushang, a hunt character. I probably should actually raise her simply because I don't have like a good like damage dealing for physical damage. Okay. I think I've gotten this one before. Only Silence Remains, which is this Dan Hung's weapon? Not bad. Two purples. All right, let's go again. Oh man. I was grinding these tickets, and then the game decided they were gonna cool off on giving me dailies to farm more tickets, which was not fun. I went through all the spaceship planets dailies, and now they won't load them. Okay, not mad. Ting Yun, let's go. I believe now she's E2. Ting Yun E2. What's her E2? What's her E2? Oh wait, it can be. I think mine's E1 already. Ally with benediction regenerates 500 after defeating an enemy. This okay, not bad. Get these ults. Okay. Oh no, we got two more 10 pulls after this, and then we have 5 single pulls. Okay. Let's go. Okay, now she's now at E1. Not bad. All right, let's see. Okay. One more after this, and then we just hope we get it in a single pulls. We don't get him in these 10 pulls, else I gotta grind more ticket. Okay, we got the 4. We got the 5-star. Is it who? Is it our mans? It's our mans. Let's go. Let's go. We got him. We did it. Oh, and E2? Su Shang? Let's go. Let's do it. Yep. Now all that mat farming I've been doing for him is now not gonna be waste. Now the question is, should I do another character pool now that I got another 10, or should we go for trying to get a weapon pool here? I think we should do a weapon pool. Not gonna hurt. We got what we wanted. We can get his actual weapon. That'd be sick. But I also have a light cone for him that is perfect for him too. So let's try it. Let's see what we got. Okay, Genius Repose. I have no clue what that one is. I'm gonna see what Genius Repose is right now. Not seen this one before. Your addition. Okay, so each shot has a role to play. Increases the wearer's attack by 16% when the wearer defeats an enemy. The wearer's crit damage increases. Not bad either. Not bad. Okay, we got some single pulls. I think we're let's roll with them. Perfect. Okay, single pull got a 4-star. Okay, another day 1 of my new life. Not bad. I have multiples. Especially they're gonna come up with more tank characters. We just have a good light cone to throw on it. Hey, there's a bluey. Okay. Okay. So we got 3 more. Another blue. All right, and we got 2 more. My favorite unit so far. Okay, we got this is number 3. My favorite unit so far probably has to be the Fire MC, to be honest. One, it's probably just because he is so juiced up. But the fact that his aggro is pretty solid, or yeah, he can attract aggro consistently, and also is can wipe up mobs really quick because his ult is hits multiple enemies. Is actually really good. He's been actually really fun to play with. I've been struggling to find a good DPS now that I got Genuine. That's probably gonna change. I've been borrowing people's Sela. She's nuts. She's super nuts. And then Papa Welt. Welt's been like stupid good. Okay, so let's look at some of these characters. I need to really boost her up. So yeah, Welt's been super good too. We got his weapon the other night, and he's been fun. He's got kind of has like a can hit multiple enemies, but he's actually really effective when you dwindle down the enemies, just because his ability. Which one is it? I believe is it the skill? I never remember. I believe it's okay. No, it is this one. So it'll hit one character and then it'll bounce up to multiple, so he can hit either the same character twice or hit multiple characters at once. But once you kind of eliminate other enemies, all those extra hits go onto one target. So he's actually a really solid single target DPS when you can wipe the field. So this game has been really wanting me to play Wilt. So yeah, Fire MC is like really, really good. And then my main team. Oh yeah, let's go get my team. Yeah. My main team so far has been Fire MC. We got Welt, Natasha, because they decided to give me every Eidolon possible for her, and she's just a really good healer. I've been forced to use Dan Heng. Or I always Yang Qing, I think. I'm gonna butcher his name. This little boy who apparently is 8 years old, according to lore. That's what I saw on Reddit. They're arguing that he's just young or he's 8. So far, this is what. Oh, actually, let's go. Let's go see what my plan is for Jin Yuan. So, since he is a main DPS, I'm thinking here, Welt, Asta, and then probably either Natasha or Fire MC. So the combination of Welt and Asta, it's going to be, I'm going to slow enemies down, and then Asta is going to speed everybody up. And then Jin Yuan will just DPS everybody down, and Natasha will play support. The reason I'm tempted to go Fire MC, though, is simply because he can also do damage too, and he'll act like a third, like, solid DPS. But I've also seen some teams kind of go something like going something like this. They double up on this, and I think one team I saw comp was like this, but healer, and then it was I've seen a comp like this, or not a comp like this. Hold on, was it this? It was another support. I'm pretty. Oh, it was Bronya. Never mind. It was Bronya. I saw a team like that, and it made a lot of sense. But for me, I'm thinking Welt, Asta, and I'm gonna bounce between Natasha and Fire MC just to see kind of like what's needed. But yeah, like finally it's like I got an actual solid DPS for the team. Hell yeah. But now let's go to details. So light code wise, this is what we're gonna be rocking. I have a bunch of seriousness of breakfast. This is actually really solid for what it. Okay, I didn't realize I had a more geniuses repose for him, but yeah. This one's really solid for him because increase the wearer's damage by 12% for every defeated enemy. The wearer's attack increases by 4%, stacking up to 3 times. Since he can attack multiple enemies at once, there's a good chance you're going to be getting this popping off. So yeah, we're gonna do that. Put it with him. Let's go back here. Relic wise, I don't have any of the electricity stuff. I don't believe. So that's what I probably have to be farming next one. I can actually get mats. So for the time being, he will be rocking whatever they tell me to put on him. Yeah, let's put equip. So yeah. We will level him up probably sometime tonight. But go really quick because I don't really have any missions. Kind of the problem with the game. I ran through all this content. Oh yes, I forgot. Got her. Ain't mad at this either. Probably a good hunt character to kind of have, especially for some of these challenges that require like a strong physical presence. I don't have Clara, who's also another strong, really strong physical unit. Don't got her, unfortunately. But all right, let's do the banner so you guys can get some Jingyuan gameplay. Let's go. I already did the trial. Had to get my fix in while I work. But this guy's not fair, man. I thought Sela was fair or unfair also. Actually, I'm saying that correctly. I thought she was not fair because every time she killed somebody, she got to attack again, and you can chain it. And this dude just straight up says, "Nah, I'm gonna hit everybody, and then when I hit everybody, I get to summon my friend, and he gets to attack too." So let's yeah, okay. That's this thing. That big old thing just gets its own attack, gets its own turn, and then the ult. Bring him back, and then
here is thunder.
How does he feel to use? Pretty sick. Like he's in general, when it comes to games like this, I like a lot of wave clearing, hitting multiple enemies at once. You get this game, it really feels like you're rewarded for doing so.
Watch this awesome move.
And a lot of my units tend to be single target DPS out of all my pulls, apparently, or unfortunately. So I've been struggling, and then a lot of the early AoE style characters are just generally not that strong. But he's, as you're gonna see right now, it's just get a free character straight up, like pretty much get a 5th man on your team for simply playing your, like, just hitting as many people as possible. But he is gonna be like skill point hungry. So from what I've noticed, you're probably gonna want like a good team to be able to facilitate that. Like with this team right here, the only other people are gonna compete with skills on a consistent level will probably be Welt and maybe Asta. But Asta is really all in on her ult. So you have her ult, you just pop it and go. Natasha, on the other hand, you're only going to be using her skill point whenever somebody actually does need healing. But most of the time, she's just going to be damage. Fire MC could be good in that point too, because he doesn't really need to use talent points either, except when he just needs to aggro the entire enemy team when you have multiple or a boss trying to hit everybody. It's not bad. Yeah, he's sick. So yeah, looking forward to it. There's a couple of challenges I actually need a strong electric character to play. So I'm definitely going to be leveling him up, and probably within the next week, this next week I'll have him caught up to everybody else. So yeah, that's a little Honkai. I'd play missions, but I can show you guys I'm legitimately addicted, and I have nothing left. I gotta wait till June to actually get some more content. And by then, I will play that content on stream for a bit. And also, Final Fantasy 16 is coming out too, so I'll definitely be playing that. But without further ado, I think it's time to get into some Pathfinder. Give me a sec, people. Let's talk some RPGs. Man, my chat is chat screen. Give me a sec. Let me bring you guys.
Nice.
Go. Okay, we're gonna talk some Pathfinder right now. As we transition into Pathfinder. So, after the whole OGL debacle, a lot of people started transitioning out of D&D. Made a lot of sense. Wizards screwing a lot of people over. And they're just looking for other games, but people wanted to play something adjacent to D&D, or at least similar. Pathfinder's always been there ever since 3.5, when Wizards introduced 4th edition. Pathfinder came out as a successor to the 3.5 game, and it's now evolved into its own system with 2nd edition, offering a lot of familiarity, wanting you and allowing you to do very similar things that D&D does, but in its own way. So, my playgroup decided to leave the comfort of 5e, and we tried out Pathfinder. But like with anybody who's started out with 5e, looking at Pathfinder 2nd edition, it really seems daunting. There's a lot of options, a lot of rules compared to 5th edition. But now, after running a few sessions and playing in several, in general, I just want to give my overall first impressions, my overall opinions of the game. But unlike 5e, where I'm very comfortable with the rules and feel like I mastered them a bit, by no means am a master of Pathfinder. So please feel free, if you are familiar with the game, to correct me if I get things wrong. It really helps, because the more I play it and the more I kind of feel this system out, and the more knowledge I obtain, I can better report and better elaborate and better explain this different fantasy core system. So first off, we're going to start off with character creation, because this is pretty much the bread and butter of how you're really going to be getting into the game. So when you're looking at the character sheet, compare like the Pathfinder character sheet compared to the 5th edition one, it's obviously super intimidating. There's a lot more boxes, a lot more modifiers you need to fill in general, just a lot more information that has to be present on the page compared to the 5th edition character sheet. And for newer players, whether you've played a RPG before or you're coming over for 5th edition, this is probably going to be your biggest barrier to entry. You're definitely going to want some help. Luckily, Paizo, the publisher behind Pathfinder 2nd edition, has introduced a beginner's box, which does an amazing job of walking players through how to build a character. It is a custom sheet with that lists certain things, that bullet points them as and lists them as A, B, C, A1, etc. As you're walking through and reading the pamphlet for the beginner's guide, it tells you where to put all this information in. So if you're going to be getting into this game, but you don't want to buy the books and invest like you would have for 5th edition, that's one thing I probably recommend somebody to do. Get the beginner box. Chip in with your friends is about like 30, 35 bucks, so not that bad. And it gives you everything you need to play Pathfinder. Comes with maps, comes with minis, comes with starter adventure, and it comes with character sheets and a player's guidebook that pretty much walks you through how to build a character from the ground up. Build a custom one. It also comes with pre-generated characters. So one thing I noticed that was a big difference between fifth edition and fifth edition character creation and Pathfinder was that there is a considerable amount of choices. So there are some similarities. You still need to pick a class, you pick a background, and then you have species options, which they're called ancestries, and I believe lineages. You have those two options, which are the equivalent of picking a race and a subrace, just without the negative connotations that goes along with race, especially if you're familiar with the race discussion and the use of race for D&D recently. So Pathfinder has stepped away from that and are choosing to use ancestries and I believe lineages. Probably wrong. I know ancestries is one of the words. But either way, while 5e has when you pick those choices, it's pretty much cut in stone. Like it's just set. You pick one and this is all the abilities you get. Pathfinder sets itself apart by even though you've picked a class, you picked your background, you've picked an ancestry, and then a lineage. You have more options in those options that further customize your character. And some of them are very upfront that you get them at first level, and then as you level, the more options present themselves. So I thought that was interesting, especially with your ancestry plays much more of a prominent role as you progress and you level in the game. And none of them seem boring. Like humans are really fleshed out. Also, as a human, you can also be a half elf or a half orc, which are other ancestries within the human ancestry option. Elves have a plethora of, and then Paizo puts out so much content that there's multiple ancestry options that you'll be able to choose from. They're not any really boring, but they are tied to their core setting. So that is like the caveat. But you can still take those options and reflavor them. My playgroup is playing in an Eberron game, so we've taken options that are present in Pathfinder Second Edition that are for Paizo's setting for the game, and just adapted them for Eberron and had them work. So another thing I'm finding that sets the system apart is when I built my character, guided by the players, or excuse me, guided by the beginner's box. Modifiers, ability modifiers are front and center. Traditionally, in fantasy games, it's always ability scores. 5e started moving away from this, where ability scores don't necessarily matter. It's always about the modifier. It's just they use the ability score to determine the modifier. Pathfinder Second Edition instead has you build your character in a way that every choice you make builds up an ability modifier instead. And from what I gathered and what has been told to me by other people that are more invested or more ingrained to the system, you still have ability scores and you can still generate your ability modifiers that way. But recent news has come out that with the revamp of Pathfinder Second Edition, they are getting rid of ability scores and they're just going to go all in on the ability modifier, which I think is a welcome change. It is another barrier to entry that a lot of people learning 5th edition struggle with because they see two numbers, they both say ability, one says score, one says modifier, and you're trying to determine which one you should be using. So this, for the Pathfinder side, this gets rid of that confusion. You just use the number with the plus or the negative next to it, and you just add it to your rolls. Awesome. I like it. I like it adds a level of simplicity and makes it easier to at least understand how the numbers work in the game. So when it comes to actually building the characters in the system, after going through the beginner's booklet box, it's actually pretty easy. So at least that first character is probably going to take you some time just because you really just have to learn what you need to, like, where do you put all the information after you pretty much know the building blocks of the system, of the character creation system. It's pretty simple. You do have a plethora of options to choose from. That's, I think, the biggest thing about Pathfinder. You have a incredible amount of choice. But once you know where all those pieces are supposed to fit on your character sheet, it becomes really, really straightforward and easy. You're going to spend more time trying to like look at your choices versus just knowing where to put everything on top of just having all those choices. That's why it's always recommended, even with Paizo, they highly recommend to have a character concept first before you go into actually just kind of building stuff from the ground up. And it makes a lot of sense. You have that character, excuse me, you have that character concept ready to go. You end up limiting the choices yourself just because you're trying to fit everything in the concept, and there's so many options that you're going to find the right thing that fits what you're trying to play. So having that concept immediately will help you determine what actual things you need to pick. What's going on, Yuke? But I think with every, whether it's 5e or Pathfinder, I think when you're trying to build a character, if you're brand new to any of these games, it's just like you're going to be your first TTRPG. Um, if you without anything to guide you, you're just going to struggle. Period. That's something that both systems share. But Pathfinder's onboarding is a hell of a lot better, and it's not even just onboarding for players. Um, One of the biggest criticisms for 5e's onboarding is that it's hard for DMs to even like run the game. The starter box and the essentials kit doesn't really give you the necessary tools, or doesn't really teach you how to actually run games. They give you suggestions. They kind of put a story that you kind of just read through and just run. But compared to the beginner box for Paizo or Pathfinder, the dungeon is designed in a way to actually teach the players and the DM how mechanics work. So it really feels like a solid like video game tutorial where they just teach you how the game is supposed to function, how you jump, how what buttons you need to press attack. It feels very much that way, just uh, in a TTRPG setting, which is awesome. Which is something I don't understand why nobody else does it, or maybe my lack of experience with other systems makes me feel that like Paizo just struck gold with the beginner's box and doing that specific thing, just giving us a pretty much a tutorial stage, that feeling of a tutorial stage to teach you how to play the game at every level. I simply don't know why 5e hasn't really thought about that. So when it comes to back onto character creation, that high level customizability really does allow you to create what you want to play. I think the biggest difference you're going to see with I think that's like really for both character creation systems is obviously 5th edition has limited classes but a lot of subclasses. Pathfinder, on the other hand, does have some similarities of some subclasses. Like you can pick certain options for certain classes that have a subclass like option to further customize your character, but you're going to have a lot more classes to choose from the get go. Class is very prominent and forward in Pathfinder versus 5th edition, where they're really set on the set of 12 to 13 classes, and then all the flavor that could expand into other classes, they just try to shoehorn them into those specific classes. While Pathfinder isn't afraid to add a new class if it's really trying to give the mechanics to fulfill the fantasy. So that I think that is one thing that if you're coming over from 5e over to Pathfinder, you really aren't going to have a subclass to the truest form. But some class options do have subclass like features that open up more features for you to choose from down the line. That give you that sense of flavor but not all of them do. Like fighter and monk don't have subclasses, but they have enough like ability options, feats, that you're pretty much building your own subclass out of those feats. And in terms of just building characters in both systems, obviously my channel started off as a character build channel where I was more focused on flavor. I have to say, Pathfinder Second Edition probably has the best character building experience compared to the two. Between the two, what's going on, Chakra? Pathfinder Second Edition to me has a better character building experience compared to 5e. The sheer amount of options you get to choose, the level of customizability, and those decisions do matter, but also at the same time, your decisions that you make, even if you're in it attempting to optimize, still allow you, and you still have to play as a member of the team. While in 5e, you can pick hyper optimized options, have some semblance of character, but you will overshadow. You have the potential to overshadow everybody. Yeah, Jan Karis brings up, and then there's archetypes which expand customization even more. Yep, yeah, and then I didn't even get to touch on that. So there are there's even more options you can choose from because multi-classing also works differently in Pathfinder Second Edition. While 5e does this weird thing of like glancing over multi-classing, they're aware that it's a thing that exists, but they don't really try to balance around it, or so they say. Pathfinder's multi-classing system is very, very different. It doesn't mess with your level progression. You have this archetypes. There's two rules that I've seen pop up. It's the archetype system where you pick an archetype and you integrate it into your chassis, and you pretty much get the abilities of another class without pretty much stopping your progression for your entire character. Unlike 5e, where you're gonna go 5 levels of fighter, 2 levels of wizard, and you're gonna go 3 monk. But you stop your progression at each class, and your character may have a lot of utility, but they generally are weaker because you're not invested into a class unless you pick certain combinations. And then the other multi-classing role that I saw pop up was the dual class role, where you just roll up and you pick 2 classes and level them up at the same time for your character. Straight up. Like, obviously that's gonna be for a higher power game, etc. But it's just one of the things you just pick those 2 options, and for me, that's interesting. That is a lot cleaner from a design standpoint, but also I can see it from a game as a player. It's a lot easier to keep track of and not feel like you're gonna fall behind. Unlike 5e, where if you do not put your character together in a multi-classing way correctly, there's a good chance where you can falter. Especially if you're not familiar enough with the multi-classing, how it works in 5e. I will say though, one of the things, obviously, like character creation, it really is all about choice. There is an abundance of choice, and on the outset, it looks very, very overwhelming. But as soon as you get into the system, it's really not the case. What I saw was that the system does a really good job of limiting your pool of options, especially when you get into your level. When you level, um, each level has a set of feat options you can choose from that are of that level, and then they also present options that are obvious upgrades to previous choices you made. You don't have to use or stick with them. You have the option to branch off and like further customize and take other options as you level. But then there's obvious choices where if you took um just a random thing like a haymaker ability at first, and then there's like a feat later that will upgrade that. like a haymaker. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. So yeah, it leaves there's still a level of simplicity in there, but also for people more ingrained in the system, they're not going to be feel restricted and they can choose an upgrade. While for 5e, I think the more ingrained people get into the system, they start to branch out because they realize that 5e simplicity doesn't allow a level of customization or doesn't have that level of customization built in, and that's why they start going to third party or designing on their own to try to fill the gaps because there is a lack of content in 5e. Well, Pathfinder, there's an abundance of content. That's a big thing. Uh, yeah, versatile heritage is amazing. Tieflings, ASMR, Geniekins, flavor on top of flavor. Yeah, and then there's more heritages. Yeah, okay, that I kept calling them lineages. So I got to correct myself. They are heritages. Ancestries are pretty much your core identity, and then there's heritages, which is another facet that is similar to, I guess, sub race that add another layer of customizability and to your character. It's awesome. Like you just have a lot of options. Like I can't hit the nail on the head like hard enough. It's just that is what this game offers. Yeah. Okay. Pathfinder has a ton of modularity, but the abundance of feats and their combinations personally feels like a landmine to design around for 3PP. I will say, and thanks for dropping by, Taryn. Just also want to congratulate you for funding on Kickstarter for Vagabond. Looking forward to getting my chance to actually play with it. If you guys haven't yet, go to Kickstarter. It is funded, but there are stretch goals. So go at it. Go at it and keep going. Go on supporting. But yeah, yeah, from a design perspective, I 100% agree with you. I think part of the issue there is the very fact that Paizo puts out so much content that at some point, I think it's the same thing where you get with 5e. Like if Wizard were to actually pump out content, why are you going to play a homebrew third party option if Wizards or if Paizo has that option already for you? If you're a casual player, right? Like I'll play their psychic even though if somebody else has developed a psychic, or they have so many feat options. Like I was wanting to really bring in the luchador, but I literally can make one with all the feats and other class chassis in the game already. That I don't feel I need to design one for um for Pathfinder. Okay. Yuke says I find designing for Pathfinder 2 easier because there's more design space to hang on features. To hang features on. Okay. Durian thinks Tieflings in 5e are so underwhelming compared to Pathfinder Tieflings. In general, yeah, like Tieflings got really gutted after they pretty much gutted the Mordenkainen, the first Mordenkainen book. There was a lot more options in there, and then there's new Mordenkainen, and also from what it looks like, 5e 2024 is completely revamping Tieflings. Yeah. This is Heavy Arms and Kibble Stacy's big complaint with Pathfinder not coming in out to dog it out at all. I think Pathfinder appeals to people who love lots of levers to it. Yeah. I will get to that in a bit. Yeah. Towards the end, because that's one thing I will hit on. Yuke says, for example, they introduced a new artifact archetype system in Treasure Vault and only 2 artifact archetypes in the actual book, so the space is wide open for adding new ones. Oh, okay. Okay, I can see that. Okay. Now I understand what you mean. So when there isn't stuff that's developed, there is an open space to actually really dive in and go in there. Excuse me. But once you find also certain spaces that are overdeveloped, it's going to be hard to create stuff. Pretty much, I say both of your guys' statements, and I both are true. I can see that because yeah, it's like for me, it's like I experienced the same thing Karen has with wanting to adapt the luchador to Pathfinder, and I kind of don't see the point just because I can play a luchador either with the monk, the swashbuckler, or a fighter chassis. Well, I can also see what Yuke is saying, that if they didn't there's certain archetypes and certain niches that are not fulfilled that they open the door for it, but there's a whole lot of room to actually design for. Pathfinder is just a 3E child with abundance of feats. You need to plan out a build to make sure you don't fudge it up. I disagree. Pathfinder, maybe in Pathfinder 1, just because it is, from what my friends have said, the ones that have played 3.5 and have dabbled in Pathfinder First Edition. But what we found out in playing it is very different from Pathfinder First Edition. This is Pathfinder Second Edition is really it's own game. Yeah, yeah. Pathfinder Second Edition is definitely a different game. I probably wouldn't have touched it if it was like 3.5, to be honest. But like, but yeah. So overall, closing thoughts just on character creation. I think the character creation system is its greatest strength. You're going to have a lot of freedom as a player for building a character, but again, with the amount of choices a player must make, newer players that have little to no experience playing a TTRPG system are going to struggle. Uh, they really, I think that's just a general problem with with anything that comes out of five like D&D core fantasy kind of games that have that in the DNA. They just struggle to onboard and bring in new players and teach players stuff. But I think this is where Paizo also takes the cake on this. Is just the beginner's box does such a good job of just onboarding it and treating it like a intro level stage tutorial level with a beginner's box, that it does a good job of teaching DMs how to run the game and teaches players how to actually create the character and play the character. You only do the first 2 levels, but each room in the dungeon that you're running through is designed to teach the DM how to run certain mechanics and run monsters, and also teach players how to interact with those mechanics and monsters. So like it does a really good job. And obviously other tools and other players that are familiar with the system are going to do, as tradition, do a really great job of onboarding players and teaching them how to get into the system. But I always recommend, if like for me, my play group, we never played second edition, like Pathfinder Second Edition, having that beginner's box has been a godsend. It really just did what I think any sort of starter tutorial box needs to do for a game, and it just it doesn't it does one thing I think 5e fails to do. Pathfinder overall reminds you that it's still a game, and that it understands that it's a game. While 5e is trying to be this weird niche of like, it has game, it wants to be a game, but also this weird RPG element, because they understand the storytelling stuff, but doesn't do a really good job of supporting the storytelling, but also has these sort of soft, crunchy mechanics that don't really get all in on the crunch. Trying to serve a mass audience and give everybody a little bit of everything without actually doing a solid enough job of just giving people what they want. So yeah, I will say Paizo's marketing team lays above what I dealt with Wizards of the Coast. Hey man, at least you dealt with Wizards of the Coast. A lot of people out there can't even get into contact with him. Like I think another thing, like company wise, between Paizo and WotC, I've seen how they talk and interact with the Magic the Gathering community and influencers there, and it's like night and day between the D&D community and influencers and the Magic the Gathering. Like they're constant in contact. Um, these content creators get to share cards, get to share information regarding the upcoming game and new sets, etc. And then Wizards doesn't do anything for D&D. Still, if Paizo is so good, why did employees had to unionize? Because it doesn't matter. You live in a capitalist society, and companies want to be companies and do capitalist stuff. And in order to keep that capitalism from running amok, people want to unionize and make sure that their basic needs and are met. It's not. It's a separate issue, but it is what it is. Like, but yeah, that's just what it is. Even good companies are not are are still going to have those issues that any capitalist country that allows it to run it as it is going to have. So two different things. When we're saying Paizo is good, it's not so much them as a business, it's or as a company. It's more so what they're doing for the game. If- Have it trying to critique Paizo on what they're doing as a business and how they treat their employees is a different discussion. And there's always room for critique when it comes to that for any company, to be honest. Just what it is. Yeah, have very little respect for upper management of Paizo. Yeah, like, and that's I think you get that everywhere. To be honest, like the upper management of a lot of places is just terrible. All right, we're gonna talk about combat now. So this is combat. I've gone on the record before. Um, I've pretty much fallen out of love with 5e combat and just in general turn-based initiative. It's just really clunky, takes too dang long. Something that should probably in game obviously last like a minute is something that lasts you like 3 hours at your session. Um, for me, my biggest issues with 5e's combat is that it's really slow. There isn't really a lot of variety in your actions. Teamwork isn't necessary whatsoever. And monsters also don't feel dynamic. Pathfinder, on the other hand, does address some of these issues for me. I think what Pathfinder has in common with 5e is that pretty much the games or combat still takes long, but unlike 5e where you have pretty much the 3 ability action economy, you have your movement. To me, like, pretty much four ability action economy: action, bonus action, movement, and reaction. And you're not always going to be utilizing all those actions at once, especially movement in 5e. Uh, Pathfinder's 3 action economy system doesn't speed up combat, but it actually makes it more fluid. Um, but also, a little caveat: I do play with a bigger group. Um, we have like 7 to 8 players at times. We do have a bigger group, so that might be in general just going to be an issue of why combat takes so long for us, especially learning a new system. But at the same time, turn-based initiative systems, I'm finding just take long, and it's harder to, in general, really formulate strategies and stuff in a super effective way. Doesn't mean you can't really do it in Pathfinder. I think Pathfinder does it a better job than compared to 5e. But you're still taking time to pretty much set a lot of stuff up and making sure you can do the cool thing you want to do and set up your allies to do that, unless somebody else disrupts that plan or the monsters disrupt that plan. But the cool thing is, like, in terms of like the action economies between both, Pathfinder, you never really feel like you're losing out on using all your action economy. That's one thing with 5e. I really do find that sometimes you just can't maximize it sometimes, especially movement. Movement is beyond terrible in 5e. Everybody has attack of opportunity, so everybody turtles up and clunks up. While that's not the case with Pathfinder, movement is a major thing. Only a limited amount of classes actually have attacks of opportunity. I think it's a small handful of classes that actually have it, and it actually makes them stand out even more because they can stop an enemy from running. But the action economy system makes it so that you can actually have chase scenes at the same time while still being in combat, or if people are trying to investigate stuff while other events are going on, you can still have all that going on in the same thing, and it just really, really flows. So the big thing with the actions, though, actions are varied. They range from skill-based actions that do have impact on combat. You have your standard attack action. You have other attack-oriented actions that manipulate the battlefield. You have also defensive actions, and then you have spell and magic item actions. So there's just a lot of different things you can choose from. I find that the 3-point system is really freeing, still allowing you to play your role while also giving you the freedom to adapt to situations in combat. Like I said, movement really does matter. Attack of opportunity is not a baseline mechanic for all classes, and actually I didn't realize until that was a that was actually removed from every class and only certain classes had it, how much that actually made movement matter and actually raise the stakes of a lot of things. We had a situation one of what in our game where with in our Ebron game we were on a train, and then the enemy actually had our NPC that we were escorting, took her hostage and took off with her. So what ended up turning into a brawl ended up becoming a chase scene, and it was just kind of just this fluid thing of like, okay, now we need to go save our cargo package or NPC, and you kind of need to stop fighting over here to keep going on there, like, to keep going, and it just it raised the stakes. Like it just having that level of movement added into combat does have give DMs an avenue to actually do different things. Oh yeah, we'll get into crunch in a bit. What's going on, Qued? Yeah, we'll get into crunchiness because that is one thing. Yeah, that's my big critique. Um, Another thing though is that the action economy system does make the classes feel balanced. So marshals have a lot of actions on their turn, and they become very tactical. They remind me of a little bit of Battlemaster fighters. They have all these maneuvers that allow them to manipulate the battlefield, but they don't lose their mechanical identity. They do it in their own way, and it's actually super sick. Like fighters actually have a lot of impact in the game. So do monks, and they just generally don't feel like they're just spamming the attack button all the time. Um, and it's awesome to see. Like fighters look a lot of fun to just generally build in that system and actually play, because depending on the weapon you're choosing, whether you're going to use a shield or not, opens up a whole lot of other tactics you can be doing. And the monks in general too in that system are bananas. Um, you can do strength monks that are all about just like holding areas down. You have the speedy, really dex based monks that kind of are just running around punching the hell out of everything. And then you also have like key based monks that are kind of doing this spellcasty sort of stuff. That's they just having marshals actually feel powerful, but also not dominating the game. Um, is a welcome change. But also when we look at spellcasters, they don't dominate the game either, like they do in 5e. The point action system does really limit how much they can do in a turn, because a lot of spells, with a few exceptions, cost 2 to 3 points. So this is pretty much, if you're going to be a spellcaster, that's the thing you're going to do. Like you really are spellcasting, but that's your turn. All right, and then there's still some exceptions. Like there's still a couple spells that cost a point here and there, so you can do a lot more. But that's really what it comes down to. Is like, yeah, if you're going to be a spellcaster, well, your turn is going to be spellcasting. While marshals are like, I'm going to attack you multiple times, or I'm going to grapple you, shove you, stop you from moving, or I'm going to do my cool like limit break move to just end you. Yet they're both on par with each other, which is a welcome change. But the big thing is like, due to the action economy system, like in order to get any sort of advantage in combat, you just legitimately have to work as a team because based off how I felt, and especially my group is still sort of learning this, is that with 5 we can brute force everything. We're just like, well, these are bag of hit points. We're just gonna keep attacking this thing, and it will eventually die. In Pathfinder, I don't know how many times I whiffed. Like I just missed just because I needed these incremental advantages. I needed my buddies to come in and do a shove, flank, do something to sort of and act as a team, act as an entire unit to actually be able to take stuff down. In the beginner's box, this was like super highlighted to me because when I ran kobolds against my players, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna just rip these people to shreds. They're just gonna kill a bunch of them. They outnumber them, and they struggled. And it was simply because they were not working as a team, not using their abilities effectively to actually give each other advantages in combat. And I that's something I do really enjoy if you're really gonna be into tactical play. That's something like if you really like the crunchiness and really like combat, that is something you're probably gonna really enjoy. For me, I'm in the middle about this. While I like that you're able to do that and it is different from 5e. I just don't like combat taking an hour or the entire session anymore. So that's just one of those things like I am kind of getting over. I want to do cool stuff and just keep the story progressing. I do really generally lean towards story. Yeah. Ket says Pathfinder Second Edition needs more teamwork. You also need to think a bit more. Hazards are no joke, and getting down isn't a nothing burger like 5e. Yeah, everything matters. I think that's what my team is learning is like really trying to effectively work as a team. I don't know if we have the best team setup because I think roles matter a lot more from what I've seen in the system too. That you kind of really do need this sort of frontline tank character. We don't have that. We do have a healer, so that's been helpful. We have a cleric. I'm playing a thaumaturge, which is pretty much like a really solid single target DPS that has a lot of utility also, which is generally what I like to play. And then we got a gunslinger, so we have a lot of people that just do damage and have sort of skills outside of combat, but we definitely don't have a tank. Yep. But another thing I want to mention about the action economy system before I move away from it is that monsters also follow this too. So this makes monsters more impactful. So no matter how many threats you actually face, monsters are also designed in a way that they don't feel like hit point punching bags like they are in 5e. Like monsters follow that same action economy, and they will hurt you. Like they get as many attacks as you do, and they have these other actions too that just do way more engaging things that create hazards that really make combat dynamic. So you really have to think, and yeah, it's been fights have been tough. they've been tough when we played, but like they're fun. It's just they're just one of those things. Like um, in the future, I think that's what I'm really looking forward to Vagabond. To be honest, the combat system there is I think is kind of right up my alley. Thanks for stopping by, man. You have a good one, and again, congratulations. If you guys have not yet backed Vagabond, it is fully funded. It is guaranteed. We're just hitting. It's all about stretch goals now. If Vagabond hits 30K, we get another class to play. So yeah, please go check it out. It's a RPG I'm looking forward to, and I will definitely be covering in the future, and potentially right. Potentially. So yeah, man, you have a good one, and congratulations again. Looking forward to what you're doing with it. Uh, I just saw someone post about how the 4E fighter should have been renamed to Vanguard, which is probably fair. 4E had a specific vision for fighter as a defender, while a lot of people see it as an offensive class. Yeah, that's it's funny because 4E gets a lot of crap for being this sort of MMO-esque like game, and I can honestly say if we just put Pathfinder in an MMO, it works, and there's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, I could see fighter being like considered that more of a defensive kind of game. So in terms of actual drawbacks with the action economy system, um will really come down to how you enjoy playing TTRPGs. For tables that run rules light or rely heavily on DM ruling, or specifically the rule of cool, actions being mechanically bound may feel restrictive to those players. Um, there's a lot of actions, so players can feel overwhelmed and have a potentially have that choice overload and have pretty much have choice paralysis, especially for newbies. But having played and having some time with the system, I've also found that classes tend to have this bread and butter action rotation that they can always fall back on. So if you don't really know what to do, it's one of those things like, oh well, like in my case, the thaumaturge, it has a pretty much its attack rotation is exploiting the weakness and then attacking. And then at least in my situation, it's turn one will be create a double with my mirror, exploit the enemy weakness, and then attack. And then after that, it's attack, attack, maybe attack again, or actually no, attack, create a mirror, double, and attack twice again. And it's pretty much what it is on in general. And you're going to see stuff like Magus, where it's load up their weapon with an ability, attack, enter, stand. Yeah, attack, next turn, enter, stance, and just recharge and kind of go into the cyclical thing. On the topic of third-party answers to the Vanguard, the Ironclad class is really good. The creator just got hired to write for an official Paizo book. Oh, that's sick. Kat said, I don't run crunchier systems often, but when I do, I've been printing my players' actions on cards if they feel overwhelmed. I find that helps a lot. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's going to be another thing too. Um, I know in the beginner's box, there was like these cards that had a set of basic actions everybody had access to that would help players kind of understand that what their action economy is. And that definitely helps. Um, but yeah, that's just one of those things. I think that Pathfinder Second Edition may suffer from a level of its own success, and why the system actually appeals to a lot of people coming out of 5e is that there's so many options that there is going to be a level of choice paralysis, especially if you haven't figured out what your class is supposed to be doing or its kind of default attack rotation, what it's supposed to do on its turns. And a funny thing is, it did really remind me of like playing Final Fantasy 14, because that's kind of how classes are too. You have the kind of the setup rotation, and then you have your bread and butter rotations after you get going, and yeah, it did remind me of that a bit. So after that, my two brain cells kind of just clicked for that. Well, it made a lot of sense. Yeah, a lot of later release classes have a more rigid gameplay loop. Thom is doing the exploit vulnerability thing. Mag is the spell striking, and then recharging. Fighter and rogue feel more freeform. Yep. Yeah, and that's one of the things too. I saw with my rogue player in the game is that even in our airborne game now, he's still with his rogue. Um, that he still is making trying to determine his choices just because he has a lot more options in this freeforming. While me as a thaumaturge is like, here's my mirror double. I exploit weakness. I hit. Next turn, create my double. Hit. So yeah, but yeah. In general, I think combat again runs more fluid than 5e, but takes just as long. I don't see a definite pickup in time, but I do definitely see more tactical play and a more fluid game play loop in combat, which is a welcome change. And having to have a level of teamwork and really think, how am I going to give my teammate my teammate a leg up fighting whatever they're fighting, um, is very very different compared to 5e, where it's like I'm a spellcaster and I'm going to cast my super mega ultra OP spell that just shuts down the enemy, and then that's it, you know. So it's definitely a we mindset, not a me mindset. But I like. What's going on, Scale? All right. In terms of crunch, let's go to crunch. So crunch. So admittedly, I'm not sure where I land on this. I don't know if I enjoy it. It's something I'm really getting used to, just because I am coming from 5e and I'm used to playing games that have some crunch, but not like this much level of crunch. So I'm not sure if I'm having fun with it, to be honest. Um, I'm having fun playing my game because I like the characters and everybody what we're role playing as. But I'm not sure if I'm enjoying how the system may support that. And I think over time I kind of will figure out it's like, yeah, this is gonna be the thing. Like this, I like this level of crunch, this level of choice, this level of options. Um, but right now I'm still actually just really not sure. Um, there is a higher level of tracking compared to 5e that you do have to get used to. Um, especially something what my playgroup was really struggling with was bonuses. Um, and it's really just combat bonuses. So there's conditional modifier bonuses, status conditions, and also weapon traits. Actually, no, those aren't even the conditions or bonuses. But the things that my group was actually struggling with straight up was conditional modifier bonuses, status conditions, and weapon traits. Because these are three different things that are three different systems that all sort of interact with each other to actually give you advantages in combat. And those were like the three big systems that, in general, we were having a harder time getting a grasp of. And for me, though, it doesn't surprise me, but that we are struggling with these these specific parts of Pathfinder Second Edition. Most of my players started playing TTRPGs in 5e with only about two or three of them playing in 3.5. But even then, I'm finding that the players that have played 3.5 also kind of struggled with some of these things. First off is conditional modifier bonuses. This is, I would say, the equivalent of 5e's advantage disadvantage system. But instead of having a very simplified, you get to roll an extra d6, or excuse me, you get to roll an extra d20, take the highest or the lowest. Um, Instead, you're going to be adding bonuses to your skill check or attack rolls based on the circumstance, a status effect, or a magic item in your possession. So each of those sort of all add a modifier that will improve your chances to hit, or also at times may decrease your chances to hit. Um, this might be easier for those that either have played Pathfinder First Edition or have played older editions of D&D. But this is something, as a 5e baby, I trying to remember which modifiers were active at any given time and when actually not to stack them. Um, was I forgot a lot. We forgot a lot. Um, so what I mean by stacking modifiers, so there is specific circumstances where you can actually stack modifiers. You cannot stack modifiers of the same type. So, for example, if you had two effects giving circumstance bonuses, they don't actually stack. Instead, you just take the higher bonus. But another example is if you had an effect giving a circumstance bonus and an item that provided a bonus to your attack roll, you actually can stack those. No. Um, I think once we get a handle on it, it's not going to be too hard to kind of remember these things. But at the same time, it's like coming from the advantage disadvantage system, which is very, very easy to grasp, it kind of does make me miss it a little bit, but it's not a bad thing either. Because I can see one of the biggest complaints I've seen for just in general, like 3.5 and Pathfinder 1, is that all these crazy modifiers you had to remember. Just knowing that there's three different types of modifiers that you can stack is a lot easier to remember in comparison to that system. But in comparison to advantage disadvantage coming out of that, it's like, okay, it's a little, it can be a little bit much, but not that bad. I've not played Pathfinder Second Edition yet. I've been told that it's extremely crunchy. I know that Pathfinder for First Edition is crunchy, but I like crunch. If I'm being honest, I'm a 3.5e Pathfinder guy from way back. PF2E is leagues better than Pathfinder First Edition, but both of them have random arts modifiers that you forget to add because there's no conditions for when they apply. Biggest downside to advantage disadvantage is the lack of nuance. It's simple and easy, but it comes at the cost of having fewer knobs to turn out as a designer. Agreed. I think that hit it on the head. Advantage disadvantage is very easy to grasp. It's a simple system, but there is a lack of nuance, and that lack of nuance does remove a level of engagement that I think this 3 status bonus modifier system allows you to actually have. Lancer and Shadow of the Demon Lord use Boon and Bane D6s instead of so they can have varying degrees of penalty. Oh, that's sick. If you ever feel frustrated, just remember it could be worse. You could be playing Rifts. Yeah. 4E was my first DD, but not my first TTRPG. Those floating 1s and 2s were hard to remember. I've played 4E like twice, and I don't remember a thing. The only thing I remember is that we did a player PvP because one of the guys went evil on us, and we were playing a good aligned party. That's pretty much all it is. We just chased his character around and killed him. That's all I remember of 4E. So, but going back to the modifier, I already know as my group gets used to playing the game, it'll be easier to grasp. The thing I really like is that it does amplify tactical play and teamwork. But it's a matter of having my players realize that it and again, setting up advantages, setting up these conditional modifiers to help your other players do the thing that they're supposed to do is integral, I think, to having some success in combat in Pathfinder Second Edition. It's just getting 5e players out of the mindset of just brute forcing stuff, because combat in 5e has conditioned us to just pretty much treat everything as a punching bag and just go down and just kill it as fast as possible. So yeah, like it's something I'm even learning, because I get used to like wanting just to be the one that does damage and then realizing I can't really do that. So I've been starting to reevaluate a little bit how I want to go about playing my my thaumaturge in a way that helps me, either if I'm missing a lot, set up an ally to actually do the whole thing. But I think the way my character's set up, and then I'm trying to figure out who the other teams, other players are. It's like there's 2 main single target DPS, which is me and then the gunslinger. So it's one of those things that I might not be the person that should be setting people up. Might be the other way around. Yeah, realistically, you only need to remember status and circumstance. Item bonuses are usually a known factor that you can write into your character sheet once you get a magic item. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just knowing when to add circumstances, or knowing when a circumstance bonus is active. I think that's one of the things too. My group would forget that we actually had one active, and either stacked it. It only happened a couple times, or forgot one was active and didn't add it at all. So yeah, and reading the spells thoroughly to realize what's going to be actually active for your thing. I started an epic level 3.5 gameplay, was intuitive as piloting a Russian nuclear sub. Oh god. Oh man. I remember back in the day, one of my buddies wanted to run a 3.5 E game in Ravnica before they released it for 5e. And I'm actually glad they released it for 5e. Which way is the gunslinger? Subclass. Honestly, I don't remember. I think my buddy's just dual wielding pistols, from what I remember. I'll ask him, but I genuinely don't remember. Most likely, if from what I'm assuming he wants to deal the damage, so he's probably playing one of them that's a little bit more straightforward in that sense. But I could definitely be wrong. But now, in terms of other things my play group is struggling with, and I'm just generally struggling with Pathfinder, is status conditions. So the status conditions, I don't think we're ever gonna not struggle with them. We struggle with them in 5e and trying to remember what every single one's supposed to do, and I don't see that changing for Pathfinder. They're a lot more elaborate. They're a lot more elaborate compared to the 5e ones, 5e status conditions, and it's just one of those things that we probably are just gonna need a cheat sheet for. So what I mean when they're more elaborate status conditions, there are some that are similar to 5e where they just have a static condition that this is what happens. But then there's also status conditions that have that are modified and have a severity of impact. So like frightened, to be feared, is a static feature or static status condition in 5e, but in Pathfinder Second Edition, it is modified by a number. So that number will determine how much you remove from certain roles and stuff. So that's the things you kind of have to keep track of, and on top of knowing what you're supposed to remove it from, which is going to be one of those things that we already struggled with, just knowing what we had advantage or disadvantage of with whatever status condition we had in 5e. Now adding a level like so pretty much severity, knowing which abilities it's supposed to be reducing from or where we're going to be hindered at, on top of just knowing what supposed to be targeted. Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to get it. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be rocking a cheat sheet, or we're just going to be asking the DM, "Hey, what is that again?" Because yeah, just status conditions. They're built in a way that it's very gamey, which works with the system, but at the same time, having them have a level mod like that they modify and hit and hinder you at varying degrees is something that yeah you have to really keep track of. I think a virtual tabletop will do a hell of a lot better job of doing that and just kind of automating that thing. But since we're playing in person, it's one of those things that I don't I think everybody will struggle with for a bit. I had no problem, but I use Foundry VTT even in person because it's got a god tier setup. Status conditions leave it a matter of drag and drop with an icon to remember. Yeah, see, yeah, if you're playing with some sort of any sort of virtual tool, that will make it so much easier. If you're pen and paper like my playgroup, nope, big old nopers. We will definitely forget. We will definitely forget. So this is where cheat sheets are going to come into play. Because yeah, that's a no for me, dog. Nope. I don't. That's just one thing I don't think my group is ever going to get used to. We struggled with 5e, and now we're playing another system that's more nuanced when it comes to status conditions and a lot more to keep track of. If we were using a virtual tool, definitely would help. Yeah, definitely. Cheat sheets would be the thing. It's not so much keeping track of who has a status condition, because that we definitely can keep track of. It's just the severity of what's happening and what sort of features are getting targeted with the status condition. Yeah, the GM screen makes for a good cheat sheet. Yeah, the DM actually got one, so we've been having to ask him, "What does that do again? What can I do?" There was a lot of that this last session. They're also on his part too. I'm frightened. What? Yeah, you're frightened too. And him having to look behind the screen to see what he's hit by. So The other thing we're struggling with, but I don't think it's so much of a negative, is the weapon traits for weapons. Um, it's actually really fun. The weapons are sick. Like weapons are really cool in Pathfinder. It is something though we definitely going to need to take time to learn because weapons have multiple traits doing various different things. But the weapon traits actually make weapons feel different and make them feel unique. They they don't feel like they're just a different damage die size. Like they actually do different things. It's another lever to turn in terms of your character's build, especially for marshals, knowing which weapon you're going to be wanting to use, whether it's finesse or a plethora of other options that they have for the traits. It is the the weapon system they're trying to integrate into 5e for 2024 pales in comparison to what they have for Pathfinder Second Edition. Um, Weapons do cool shit. Like weapons are just cool in this game. It's just though I think where my group falters since we're not used to using that level of like the modularity with the weapons. Just trying to remember what each trait did and if it actually applied in that situation. I think once you get into a regular attack rotation and just knowing what you're supposed to be doing or what you want to do, that is gonna come like hand in hand with your class. Like if you're a barbarian, you're hitting with a battle axe, and you're you know, just chopping it up. Uh, like obviously knowing what your axe is gonna do is gonna go alongside that. So yeah, so but it's fun. Like um, it it does add like you get your entire weapon setup can determine the kind of build you're gonna go for too. Like it's one of those things that you don't really see that in 5e outside of like unless you're going to take a feat attached to that weapon, like polearm mastery. Um, I see it in Pathfinder instead. It's like you don't need kind of like the feat just enhances what you want to do with your cool ass weapon. So um, it's just one of those things I know over time we're just it's gonna matter. It'll help some of the stuff, some of the traits that I've seen that like kind of come up a lot. Um, there's traits that alter damage type, um, a damage dealt during a critical hit. Also make traits that make it easier to attack multiple times, and there's a lot more. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things. Like it's just weapons are actually a cool thing in this system. And the last thing I want to talk about for Crunch is the 4 levels of success. So this is kind of the backbone of the backbone of like nuance in the system. It is it's mechanically supported. It's a for me it was a big game changer, but it's also something the DM really needs to keep track of. The reason it was a game changer because it adds a level of depth to skill checks and exploration that really isn't there for 5e. 5e is just really a pass or fail system. Okay, cool. And then the DM has to arbitrate whether the success you got is a high level success or that failure you got was a higher lower level of failure. Um, and that's where I think you open the floodgates, you open the door for um combative gaming at the table. And while Pathfinder, on the other hand, it just mechanically supports this and does it takes away that angle or that tension from the table. Also adding a level of nuance, um, allowing you to feel that and support the DM is supported in a way that can actually they can mechanically just say this is what happens. You're super successful. Boom. This is what you get, or you're it's a super failure. So sorry. Here's what happens without yeah, being in that combative space where the DM kind of just has to arbitrate it or BS it along the way. Funny thing, it took a lot of pushing on Mark Seifert's end to get the rest of the team to try it out. Yeah, like I think too, just because even if you look at early like TTRPG spaces like the D&D YouTube stuff, when it came to like success, especially since everything is centered around 5e, it was a lot of DM arbitration. DM gets to decide. Like you can fudge it, you can do this, you can do that. You get to allow players to have you get to determine how the level of success the players have. And mechanic, I can see the resistance of having that sort of be mechanically supported without considering that if you do have it mechanically supported, you do take a table tension away. You take a certain aspect that does allow a confrontation at the table between two parties that should be playing with each other. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, it makes them play against each other. I don't. I don't think it slows down. Oh, the funny part is like when you have the DM arbitration sort of pass or fail, DM gets to decide. I think that slows down gameplay more than this because this is just like straight up. Uh, since it's mechanically supported, the DM just has to look at the thing and says, "Okay, that's what happens. Cool. There, this is what happens. This is the especially like for me, experience with Thaumaturge, my exploit, my exploit weakness ability has 4 levels of success. If I get a critical, I know everything, every weakness, every vulnerability, every resistance that the enemy I'm trying to figure out about has. But if I just succeed, I get to know one. But if I fail, I can still apply some sort of weakness, but I don't necessarily know all the information. And if I critically failure, um, I don't know really know anything, but I can still apply some sort of weakness to it. And this is all without the DM having to really do too much and just says, okay, this is what happens. Cool. Keep going. I can't help but lament that damage on failure didn't make it to the playtest. I think the game would be better for it. I think it would if like you still hit somebody whether you failed, and vice versa. Yeah, I think it would speed up combat. I think they would speed things up. But yeah, 4 level success just really does make exploration and social encounters way more rewarding. But again, like that's it makes it a lot easier to run those kind of things in a game without and making it easier. I think actually for the DM to actually run those kind of parts of the game, which is always helpful. So now we're getting into the last bit. So Pathfinder Second Edition or 5e. What do I think is better? What should I be choosing? Obviously, it's the PlayStation versus Xbox, the Sega versus Nintendo question. Um, to be honest, this is probably going to be a cop out answer, but in general, I do like both systems just for very different reasons. Um, I think for me, 5e's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness. It's the reason I like it, but also have issues with it is that it does give a framework for play groups to become big damn heroes. But the reason it's a weakness too is because you have to build that experience because the level of modularity it has. It's not really going to be baseline. Like they're unfortunately Wizards does not put out enough content to support things, or when they do push out content, it's very underdeveloped. So you have to modify it to build the experience that your table is going to want. And unfortunately, not everybody has the time or the skill to do that. It's just this is what it is. Uh, and then Pathfinder Second Edition, I find that it is what I like about it is it is a very deep game. It's ready to go out the gate. You have a bunch of tools at your disposal just to help you just run the game. Like you just have everything you need. The, and I find it that it's probably is a lot easier to kind of just pick up and go and just boom, like pick up and go. You don't to plan a session isn't as intensive as I found for like 5e to be. Um, I find that both games do want to answer how to play a fantasy game. But I also don't think they're competing with each other, even though they're answering that same question. I honestly believe they're going after different audiences. 5e really wants to go after casual players or players that want to lean a little bit more narrative while still having a touch of crunch. While Pathfinder Second Edition is for folks that really want more options, that embrace crunch. They do like crunchier games. They like more tactical games, um, but also are looking for a system that understands it's still a game. I think 5e fails at that point. I think 5e is trying to appeal to too many people by giving you a little bit of everything and not being strong enough to actually just be good at something. Um, I think as time goes on, like 5e will kind of live on as being a really solid system, but it's also going to be a system that you really do have to put the work in to get it to be the thing you want it to be. And it's got the level of success it has because of its simplicity. But at the same time, other factors in pop culture that really just help propel it, like Critical Role and Stranger Things. Um, I think without the pretty much those two factors, 5e probably would have just been overlooked. Um, Pathfinder, on the other hand, is going to be a bit of a struggle for casual players to get in immediately. But what I mean though, when it understand it's a game, there every system is built to sort of every system's kind of built in a way that it fits with each other. Um, it doesn't forget that it's a game that you're supposed to actually play and like kind of know the mechanics and do the things you're supposed to do. Um, Encounters, at least from the beginner's box, were designed in a way that it was teaching you how to play the game while still having a level of story involved, but it still was like, yes, this is how the game is played. This is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how these challenges work. This is how attacking work, etc. And it is a welcome change compared to 5e, but also one of those things that um how much I can play the game, how I can play Pathfinder in the long run too, is going to be one of those things where do I want a more narrative kind of storytelling game or do I want a more like teamwork tactical game? Another thing what I mean by it reminds itself that it's a game is that if I were to create a video game and put Pathfinder Second Edition and plug in 5e into either as a video game, Pathfinder Second Edition will run better as a video game. It has everything there, has all the systems that I would expect out of like a video game in there, just in a tabletop format. And it's fine. It's funny how like 5e is getting a lot of crap for this VTT and like being designed to be like a video game, but it's like not to crap on Pathfinder Second Edition. Pathfinder Second Edition is built like a video game, and it's perfectly fine. It works. It's solid. You can still play stories. There's nothing wrong with building it. I actually think Pathfinder Second Edition probably has a more enjoyable VTT experience compared to 5e, just because of how the rules aren't defined, and there's a lack of support for rules in 5e and mechanics, while Pathfinder Second Edition has fully fledged out rules and mechanics to actually help run the game. Other thing is comparing both of these games. 5e is definitely a easier game to learn and master, but its onboarding is pretty terrible and really does rely on influences to teach you how to play the game. It relies on other players. It relies on content creators. It relies on outside sources to actually teach you how to play the game. I don't think the two starter boxes. Actually, I don't even know how many starter boxes they've had for 5e. I don't think they do a good enough job to really teach you how to actually run or play the game. Pathfinder Second Edition, though, since it is a deeper, richer game, it's harder to master, but it probably has one of the best onboarding boxes I've experienced. It has one of the best starter boxes, the beginner box, that really goes and is very thorough about teaching players how to play the game and teaching DMs how to run the game. But it does it in a way that is not intimidating. It does it at a step-by-step level, which again, it reminds me of a starter tutorial level from a video game, and it not in a bad way. Like there is still narrative. They still set up the prompt, and you're still going through the dungeon, but each dungeon room is designed to teach you various mechanics of the game, which is awesome. I think other companies really need to take note of, like, you want to introduce your system to people. I think this is the right direction to do it. For now, though, it's really too early to tell if this is going to be like my group's like permanent system. We're having fun with it now. We're going to keep running our Ebron game as a Pathfinder Second Edition game. Um, will we go back to 5e? I don't know. There's also other fantasy games coming out, like I mentioned prior, Vagabond, and I see you brought up there's 13 Age, and I know I'm gonna be in Ked's game coming up soon. Actually, in June, I'm gonna be playing Cipher System, but it's gonna be in a cyberpunk setting. Um, but the Cipher System set up to actually also play fantasy. What I'm seeing, it's other systems out there that can do it. And also there is 5e's 2024 update that I have playtest already, and that's interesting. But in terms of what my group is going to stick with, I have no idea. No idea. But the cool thing is that playing Pathfinder Second Edition, especially after all the OGL stuff has come out, I really didn't care about playing 5e. I wanted to hang out with my buddies and play some sort of game. But now that we've kind of like started playing Pathfinder Second Edition, it's made me want to play TTRPGs again. Having my break, stepping away, and not really touching any of this stuff, and just everything the Wizard was doing, I just didn't want to. I didn't even want to talk about D&D. I didn't even want to touch any sort of game, or just didn't want to touch 5e whatsoever. But now playing this, I'm actually excited to play games again. It's awesome. So if you're somebody that is frustrated with Wizards of the Coast, either because of what happened earlier in the year with the OGL, or you're just frustrated with the lack of support that they have for their system with official stuff, and are still afraid to get your feet wet into third-party product, even though I honestly believe you should support third-party developers, you probably are going to like Pathfinder. Just because it has the support necessary as the base of the game to really actually run games. So yeah. But yeah, that's my take on Pathfinder. I believe we got a game this weekend. I've gotten Hero Forge minis for my character. I actually got 2 of them. One for my character, and then one his mirror double. This is a thaumaturge. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure like how much longer I want to run it. I'm looking forward to trying Cypher. Yeah. I'm gonna play Cypher with Ked. We're gonna do the Cyberpunk. I'm kind of eyeing the big old tanky brute that he showed me, but if somebody else gets some, I'm fine with that too. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna try Cypher. I'm looking forward to that. I've heard nothing but good things about Cypher system. But yeah, I'm general like part of it, like trying new systems, is really trying to get my my buddies invested in trying to pique their interest with it. I know I've tried to pitch them, what was it, Lancer? But not all of them are big giant robot fans. Like my brother definitely is, so I know he'd want to play Lancer. I definitely like big giant robots and Gundam and Gurren Lagann and stuff like that. But since the rest of them kind of aren't, if we're going to do that game, I'm probably gonna have to run it instead of playing it, and I want to play it because I want to be in a Gundam. I want to be in a giant mech. Another game I was trying to pitch them. I know the Marvel TTRPG is gonna come out soon, so I was kind of like, hey, we all like the MCU. Let's just play Marvel. But again, it's one of those things that I'm gonna have to run. I know about that. And yeah, and then we tested out the 5e update, the 2024. I played a Warlock. The Warlock really feels like a soft Pathfinder Second Edition class. So Ooh, Free League, anything for Free League, Tales from the Loop, Alien, Dragonbane, Morkborg. I want to try Morkborg and Dragonbane. Morkborg look pretty interesting. You should check out the Lancer Tactics demo. It's a fun little video game version of the Lancer. Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down. Quest for the Golden Candelabra, which is a short gift to. Ooh, gonna have to try that out too. Lots of games. Lots of games. All right, looking at the time, that's about does it for me tonight. But yeah, Pathfinder, it's fun. Definitely, I recommend checking it out if you haven't. Cool thing is, you can play this game absolutely free. Absolutely free. There's a bunch of resources online. Archives of Nethys for second edition has every rule, no lore, but every rule you need to get up and running on Pathfinder second edition. There's also Pathbuilder 2E, which is a free online tool that will help you build your character and at a step-by-step basis. That is pretty much a free version of like what could be their D&D Beyond character builder. A free version of it. Does a really, really solid job of calculating everything for you. So it even takes that level of of barrier to entry away from the game. It's really solid. You can use it as an active character sheet also. Just need to save it to your Google Docs and stuff like that. So yeah, even then, like my group has only bought the beginner's box. I bought the beginner's box during the OGL fiasco, and then Paizo had the sale for Orc, and so I bought it there. And we've pretty much been using Archives on Nethys the entire time. So yeah. So again, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be live again this Sunday. I will be going live. We're probably going to jump back into maybe some design stuff. I am cracking my head on the Dreadnought class for a 5e. My Dark Knight, Black Knight trope inspired caster martial class. Jumping back into class design after I said I wasn't, but yeah, here we go. I'm doing it. Also, last little bit of updates. Luchador is out with a new update for a new subclass, the Maskless. It is the update for hitting copper. If we hit silver, we're close to hitting silver. I'll do another update adding more stuff to the class. If I can get the page count, maybe it'll go print on demand. Maybe. So we'll see. But yeah, other than that, expect more games like I opened the stream with Honkai Star Rail. I know Final Fantasy 16 is coming out, so I definitely will be playing that on stream. And some more stuff. I know Baldur's Gate 3 comes out this year. And Diablo 4 is also coming out in June too, so I got a lot of games to be playing. But again, until next time, guys, you guys have a good one and take care.